Psychology of selling. This is a topic that I'm going to present today, which is one of the most critical aspects for any of the sales guy. Every sales guy will always feel that like why people buy. Some of the key takeaways or what you can expect is basically what are the buyer's motivation altogether. Then the FAB approach, which is actually the features, advantages and benefits. Then understanding the buy-in needs or determining the buy-in needs and buyer perception in the decision-making process altogether. The people would like to understand the fresh approaches that can bring in from the psychology of sales or in order to understand the basic psychology of selling. This is great. The first basic question that every sales people, why people buy. As you know that the customers, right, they mostly buy the product on the basis of the certain pitches that a sales guy makes. So the presentation make a critical factor altogether. Still after the presentation, if they buy or why they buy or why they don't buy, that is a question which always remember, right? Okay, what is the behavioral process of a buyer in buying the particular product? It can be the product, can be a services, or it can be a direct product altogether. So this is where the process of internalization which always comes into. So this is a process which is called as blackboard approach. Every buyer has got their own mental process altogether. You have to consider buyer's internal mental process, why this particular buyer is going to buy that particular process. So this approach is known as blackboard approach. But as a salesperson, we will not be able to understand the entire mental process of a particular buyer altogether. So the best what we can do is basically the stimulus aspect. The stimulus is nothing but including the relevant information in a presentation format altogether. So as a salesperson, the best thing what we can do, understand the behavioral approach and include the relevant aspects into that particular presentation or how you're going to present to the buyer altogether. Then it goes like, it again depends upon the responses of a particular buyer altogether. So basis on all these aspects, the buyer will figure it out whether they have to purchase it or not to purchase. So these three elements we always have to keep in mind, because the buyer's mental process is actually a key factor, but as a salesperson, we will not be able to understand the entire mental process of a buyer. The best thing in order to increase or create a stimulus in among the buyer altogether. The stimulus is nothing but creating a better present your company or your product altogether in a better manner. Why people buy? So there are three basic reasons why the people buy. The people buy for both, either for psychological reasons or practical reasons related to their company. Or as a consumer, we always buy from the practical or psychological needs altogether. Now, we have to determine the prospect's thoughts during the sales presentation. Now, as a salesperson, when we create a sales presentation or when we present a sales presentation, we have to determine from the prospect thoughts or from the buyer's shoes, we have to create that particular presentation and present it all together. Now, buyer also considers certain factors in making purchase decision altogether. So there are various factors which is involved. The external stimuli, which is actually a part of the presentation aspect, is one of the key important aspects. So the external stimuli is actually the area where the buyer or the consumer's response is actually the combination of the marketing mix and the environmental factors that we have to include as a part of the presentation. So the 4 P's of marketing, which product, price, place and promotion, and the environmental factors. So these two factors actually combine the stimuli, and then this we have to include in the presentation, what we are going to present to the buyers altogether. Now, the black box approach, what I mentioned, the buyer's mind. So buyer's mind is very, what you say, like they have got so many products which is available or so many companies related to the same product available. So there are many internal factors which are involved for their buyer decision making process. So one is consumer characteristics or buyer characteristics and decision making process. So I have to just highlight this actually varies in a B2C and B2B environment altogether. The consumer characteristics are basically from the belief and attitude, the value, knowledge, motives, what is the lifestyle looks like, perceptions. And decision making is basically nothing but the problem solving, information search, purchase, evaluation of certain product, and so on and so forth. So these are the factors actually involved the buyer's internal factor altogether. Now the response will be why they should buy. So the purchase because of the product, brand, source, the payment aspect, what is the kind of payment, and so on and so forth. Then they will go for a decision. Either they will go for a purchase decision or not purchase decision. So these are the major factors which actually involves a buyer's decision or buyer's buying process altogether. So what are the psychological influence on buying? The selling actually requires the understanding of the human behavior. We have to always keep the customers in focus. So we have to understand what is the customer's motivation, what is their perception all about, what is their personality, then what is the attitude of that particular person towards the product. So one of the most important aspects what as a salesperson we all should keep in mind is basically the influence or the behavior of customers towards buying a particular product altogether. So the purchase decision is actually one of the critical aspects, and it involves the understanding of the behavior of the consumer or the buyer altogether. So what actually influence the buyer in a normal layman word? So motivation is one of the most important aspects. Buyers will always think that like there should be a motivation to buy that particular product. So what are the needs and wants? Then buyers will consider the economic need. Every customer or every buyer will always feel that the best value for their money. So including us, when we go to a shop, we always see that like we need the best product and best value for what we are paying. And at times, right, this is typically in the B2B scenario, what we always see, and B2C also we can see this, the price is not only the major factor, right? At the end of the day, what is the service, what is the quality, what is the better performance of that particular product, these all matters. So as a salesperson, we have to keep track of each and every aspect when we give presentation to a buyer about the product altogether. Then we have to understand the awareness of the need. We can classify the buyers into 3 degrees, which is one is conscious, one is pre-conscious, and one is unconscious at all. So the conscious buyers are those who are aware of like what they want to buy altogether. So it is very easy to sell them, but at the same time, we have to also consider the other aspects like the quality, the service, the better performance, price, and so on and so forth. Then the other important aspect is basically the pre-conscious nature of the particular buyer. So they are a kind of audience, they know the general type of product altogether. They still want to understand about the product altogether. So this is where a mix of giving an understanding to them and how the particular product is standing out from the competitors altogether. Now, the third important category is basically the unconscious guys altogether who doesn't know anything or doesn't know what they want to buy. So, or why they want to buy a product. So that's where hard selling and more sales effort will come to sell that particular product. So these are the 3 major psychological influences which keeps on tinkering in buyer's mind altogether. One of the most important aspect in the selling or the approach or the technique what we can include is basically the fabulous approach. One of the most powerful selling technique is actually the usage of benefit selling to your customers altogether. Mostly like what as a sales guy in the early stage, what we normally do is like we get a corporate deck from the marketing team. We go and give, say, if there are about 20 or 30 odd slides or 30 plus slides, we present everything. And obviously, like we have got normally like in sales meeting, like we may get around an hour or an hour and a half. So what we have to always think is like in every stage, right? We should master the art of benefit selling, and this approach is nothing but which is called as fabulous approach. So the fabulous approach is basically consists of 3 important aspects. So FAB stands for feature, advantages, and benefit. And as a sales guy or as a salesperson, we should always try to incorporate this particular approach when you present your company, your product to any of your prospective buyers or any of the clients that you go and make. So the feature is basically the basic important characteristics of your product altogether. So be it B2C or be it B2B product side, we have to include the basic features what the product gives to that particular buyer altogether. Then what are the advantages of that particular product? So the advantages are nothing but the characteristics of that particular product, how the product can be used, what the product does, so why the product can be used for buyer's benefit, how it is cost competitive compared to the competitors. So this is another important aspect that you have to take care. So what is the product advantage altogether? Then the third is actually the benefit. What are the benefits that the buyer will receive by buying this particular product altogether? So whenever we create a presentation, we have to emphasize, or when we present it to the client, try to include this particular approach altogether, which is nothing but fabulous approach, which is you have to mention the feature, advantage, and benefit to the clients altogether. I have taken the advantages, benefits, and feature, but if you must have seen, right, it is not in that normal line altogether. So for each and every product, right, actually thing is like we have to understand what is their advantages, benefit, what all the features, and then include in various sections altogether when you present it to the client. So in the case of machine altogether, so if you see, right, blade changing is quick, which is an advantage. It is very easy, which is a benefit for them. And with this, so because it has push button blade, and it is one of the features. So this is where you have to highlight this particular concept altogether for your product. For a chocolate, it's basically the king size, which is actually feature, which will bring you additional profit, which is actually benefit, and it is a fast growing and more economical size. And this is for stretchable jeans for longer wear advantage and saving your clothing. So this is how you have to figure out what is the feature, benefit, and advantages of your product and highlight it to the client. Push it to the mind of the buyer whenever you present your particular product vis-a-vis to the competitors. So you have to have both the understanding of your product and the competitor's product, then give a holistic view to the buyer, because buyers are the people who needs the good product, which is value for their money. And because the buyers doesn't look at your product, right? They must be interacting with your competitors, maybe few of them, and then finally they conclude what product they want to buy. It's your duty to influence the mind of the customer and make them understand, okay, why your products stand out altogether. What to determine about important buying needs. This is one of the most important things that we always want to understand about the buying needs of each and every customer. So one of the critical factors is this particular aspect altogether. So determining the buyer's need is one of the crucial factor. We always have to keep in mind that what are the benefits that the buyers will get which satisfies them. So you have got a product, right? And then it has got all the benefits in the likes of like you are providing a good service, the delivery time is very less, the delivery is very good, the customer can save the cost of this particular product by buying product from your site. But we have to always keep in mind, does the buyers want all this stuff or they need something else? So we have to determine what is critical for the buyer altogether. At times, the cost is one of the most important aspects for them. At times, delivery is critical for them, or time of the entire operational or closure of lead is actually important for them. So every aspect that what we have to take into consideration. So in order to determine the need, there is a method which is commonly practiced, which is called locate. Every word has got its own definition altogether. So as a salesperson, like when we are going for a face-to-face meeting or a boardroom selling, you try to inculcate the concept of locate basically in your presentation as well as when you present. So what does L stand for? L stand for listen. So you have to understand the behavior of the client altogether. So you have to understand their verbal cues, their tones, their implicit and explicit need altogether. So basically, like as a salesperson, you must do certain research about the company, who are the people whom you're going to meet, and at the same time during the presentation also like understand the environment altogether. So listening is actually one of the critical factors that you have to implement. Then observe. the observing is actually another important aspect. Whenever you present, access the body language of each and every individual. If it is one person or if it is multiple person, try to understand the body language, their facial expressions, reaction of their non-verbal cues. So if you want to take a pause in between, try to do that and make them understand about the relevance of your product. So observation is one of the critical aspects that you have to go through. Then combine is another important aspect. So C stands for combine. So consider, get information from every aspect. So do your research, talk to various people within your organization, whether they have interacted with the client previously, why it doesn't work previously. Try to have an internal understanding. Before you go for a presentation, try to gather all the information and combine it, and comes with a comprehensive understanding of what the customer needs altogether, which will be easy for you to present the relevant topics, the relevance of the product to the customer altogether. Then ask questions. So ask questions is actually a two-way thing for you. So ask questions actually thing is like you give a pause, let the customer ask the question, as well as you can also ask the question. So this engagement actually gives an open-ended scenario for you to understand what all the various aspects that customer needs. Then, as I mentioned, talk to others. So you can gather insights from your colleague or your team members, or within the customer, like if you try to catch hold of someone, understand what all the various perspectives, what they are looking into altogether. And last but not least, which is actually one of the critical thing, empathize. So we have to think from the customer's perspective altogether. We have to understand their emotions, concerns, and their aspirations to their purchase needs. At times, like we always, in order to meet our sales target, we try to hard sell, right? So we go on talking about all the things. At the end of the day, neither the buyers will be able to understand what they want exactly from this particular product, or why they should buy from us. So we, as a sales guys, always try to understand the emotions of the customer, whether they are facing any challenges, what is their aspiration related to their purchasing parity, and so on and so forth. So the term locate plays a critical role in determining the buy-in needs. So the campaign is nothing but, as I mentioned, right, you should gather information from various sources. So the sub point of campaign is actually talk to others. So say, for example, if I take, like, you are selling a product to a customer, and you want to exactly understand what is the problem that they are facing, what is the kind of people that you are going to meet. So you have to have a critical understanding about the particular problem that a company is facing by gathering information. So it can be through various ways, right? So if, say, for example, if they are using SAP as a solution, I'm talking from the B2B side. If they are using SAP as a solution, what are the current drawbacks that they are facing, or how your product can be a better product than an SAP solution which they have implemented. So you have to, as a salesperson, you have to get the information about that particular company, what is the thought process of that buyer from various sources. At times it is not easy to get, but the thing is, like, always a pre-evaluation will always help us to create a comprehensive solution, and which can stand out compared to whatever product that they are using currently. Another important aspect is basically the concept of trial close. So trial close is actually one of the best selling techniques that you can always use when you present it to your prospective buyer or a buyer. So trial close actually checks the pulse or attitude of the buyer towards the entire presentation what you have made. So the trial close can be used in the four important aspects altogether. So one, after making a strong selling point, you can use the trial close. So after making a strong selling point, you can take a pause, and then you can understand the buyer's behavior altogether. Then after the presentation, so you can present the entire product deck altogether, then understand the pulse, attitude of the buyer behavior. Then, say, at times, right, the buyers will have their own objection, or they may come up with questions which we can object. So there also, like, you will be able to understand the attitude or pulse of the buyer towards the presentation which we are currently made. Then it's like towards the end, like everything is good and we are about to close the sale. So the trial close have been used in this at these times. Why trial close helps us? So the trial close helps us to determine certain aspects. So whether the prospects will like our product features or benefit, whether we have successfully answered the objection which they have made, whether any other objection remains there, and whether the prospect is ready for us to close the sales or not. So this important aspect we have to always determine towards presenting a particular product. So trial close plays a critical role, and for that you always have to keep in mind about the taking pause at necessary times. So some of the examples of trial closes are: how does it sound to you? Is this important to you? It appears that you have a preference of this model. So what is in your mind? So you are using this particular product. So do you want any additional features which has to be included, which we can provide? So these are certain things that we have to always incorporate when we present it to a particular buyer or a prospective buyer altogether. The next important thing, which is actually the sell sequence. So we know the term sell, but there is an abbreviation for sell altogether. So we have to use the sell sequence throughout our presentation. The presentation is when we present to the respective buyer. So the S stands for we have to show the features of the product altogether. Then E stands for explain the advantage. So many times, right, whenever we present a particular text, so half of the times, like say 15-20 minutes, we will be talking about the company altogether. Then normally we will get into the entire stack of product. So always we should try, basically, is right, we have to talk less about the company, because most of the people understand, because they must have done their pre-research about the company which we represent. So we have to give more importance to this sell concept. So first we have to show the feature, then explain the advantage of the product what we are going to sell, and it's not the entire product. So if we may having a multiple stack of product, as I mentioned in the previous slides, right, when we do a research, understand what the customer basically needs, then emphasize on that particular product, the advantage of that particular product. Then L stands for the leads into the benefit, why they should buy this particular product, and then the last L stands for let the customer talk, let them ask questions, will be able to answer it properly. So give more space to the customer to ask questions, rather we keep on talking and giving a understanding about the product. So the selling involves it's actually a combination of the needs and skillful related to the product benefit of the buyer's need altogether. So try to incorporate the sell sequence altogether, which will help you to articulate your product in a better manner, and then which I think towards it helps us to close your deals in a better manner, rather dragging the entire process altogether. So buyers need, right? There are different kinds of buyers altogether. And as a sales guys, one of the critical things what we were talking is about understanding of the buyer side. So every time when we go for a meeting, we may not be able to understand the buyer's persona altogether. Be it one person or be it a multiple people, the persona of the people changes. So the buyer's persona is basically classified into four different categories altogether. So one is thinker, one is intuitor, feeler, and sensor. So these are the basic four personas of or personalities of buyers altogether. According to these aspects, we always have to adapt, or we have to always alter our presentations altogether. Now, how do you identify all these people, right? Who is thinker, who is intuitor, or who is feeler, who is sensor? And maybe like you may be coming across all these four people or a combination of any of this. So Understanding from the buyer's persona is one of the critical factor, because thing is like it is easy for you to connect with them and then able to mold your presentations accordingly. So thinker is a person who is he works only on logic, he works on ideas, he works on systematic inquiries altogether. If you are dealing with those kind of persons, right, so what you have to always include is basically always present in such a manner that like with ample amount of data and the facts and figures will be critical for these people. And you have to present your materials in very orderly and logical manner and be precise. And they don't want to hear about the entire thing. You have to be precise on what you are going to talk. Now, coming back to Intuitor is again, they give importance to idea, they give importance to innovations, concepts, theories, long range thinking and all. For these kind of people, we have to always give a bigger picture about whatever we are selling, be it a concept, be it service, or be it a direct product. Now, feeler is a person, they are very sensitive for what they want to buy altogether. They are very, very emotional in the sense like, okay, this is very critical for the company, we should buy. So always, if you come through these kind of people, we have to keep the presentation on a very personal note, give importance to that guy, how the product can help your organization in such a manner, including the emotional aspect altogether. And the last but not least, the sensor. The sensor is actually a person who is very high value on action altogether. They work on basically from the graph, model, samples. So they want to visualize everything. Once they visualize everything, then only like they will be able to take a decision altogether. For them, always the combination of verbal communication and written communication works, but the verbal communication always helps them to make decision altogether. So as a salesperson, we always have to understand the buyer's persona altogether. And it is critical, right, for us to connect with those people and then help them to take decision, as well as how easily that you can sell your products to them. So this is actually chart which explains the buying decision process altogether. So there are basically 5 basic steps in the buying decision altogether. One is the need for the arousal, then the collection of information, then evaluation of information, purchase decision, whether to buy or not to buy, and post-purchase. So the first important critical aspect is like the customer understands or customer realizes his needs. Now, in order to create that arousal, like you have to help him understand why the particular product that you are going to sell to him stand out vis-a-vis to the competitor. So that need has to, or that arousal has to be, you have to arouse that particular need in the mind of the customer altogether. Then you always have to think that, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, the customer will not look your product only, because they may be looking into variety of other products, variety of the kind of competitors that you have in the market. So they may be collecting various information and then they try to throw it to you. So the basic thing what you have to understand is basically take your top 5 to 6 competitors for your product, if there is any, unless and until your product is a very niche product and new to the market. Otherwise, like compare it with these. And in back of your mind, right, you should have answer for this, because customer may throw a lot of questions. Why the X company's product is better than yours, or their pricing is better, their delivery is better, or their features are critical. So you should have a typical answer or try to compare and then project it to the particular product to the customer, why you stand out and what benefits that you can give vis-a-vis compared to the competitors. Then and try to be more accurate with your information, because nowadays, right, you can see multiple products which is coming, because recently, like I was having a session on the e-procurement side, and there are 7 to 8 companies who came having the similar solutions. Now, prima facie, like we don't see any difference in that. Now, what boils down is basically the pricing aspect altogether. Otherwise, like the products remain the same. Some of them have got the brand value. Some of them are very from the startup environment altogether. So as I mentioned, right, the information evaluation is one of the most critical aspects, because you, as a sales guy, we always have to understand that the customers will always matches the information according to the need, attitude, and belief, and what we have presented. So as a sales guy, at least like we should provide the relevant information about the particular product altogether. So the information evaluation is actually a critical aspect altogether. Then the purchase decision. So the purchasing decision is another important critical aspect. The buyers will always feel that why I should buy this particular product from you vis-a-vis to ABC company, whatever it is. The purchase decision or the decision of the purchasing capacity can be altered by four different factors. One, the attitude, the perceived risk, the uncontrollable factors, and as a salesperson, the actions what the decisions have been reached. So the purchase decision can be a go or non-go, and it depends upon these four factors. Now, as a sales guy, right, I always believe whether it's a client, which is a repetitive client or a new client, I always give two important aspects. One, the features benefit, and then what are the services that we give post-purchase. And this is one of the most important aspects that we should highlight, because most of you as a sales guy or as a consumer, we must have experience, right? Once we buy any item, and that's it, end of the story. And in order to chase the company, in order to get the service aspect, or if any problem exists, what is their reaction altogether? So what we have to always help the clients to understand that as a salesperson, whether to buy or not to buy, when we create a presentation, so there is a meme which has been saying, not saying that you should buy it, but you should buy it. So this is the attitude that we should give it to our customer altogether. So whenever we develop a presentation, or whenever we present, before presentation, there are certain questions that we should ask ourselves. So what is the kind of product which is desired for that particular client? What are their buying situations altogether? So buying situations can be many aspects, right? The situation may be like the product may be immediately requiring for them, then, or they may take decision after comparing with many competitors. So you have to stand out in the buying situation altogether. Then how will the product be used by the customer? And that has to be involved in your presentations altogether. Then what are the various practical factors which may influence the buyer decision? It can be both emotional factors, it can be psychological factors, it can be immediate aspect altogether. And what are the buyer's important buying needs? Which are the critical buying needs that which are always aspect? So we should try to answer all these questions to the customer which we are going, and accordingly, like, we have to alter the deck, because each and every customer, because in my early careers, right, I have got a tendency to create presentations. There is a company presentation, there is a product presentation which has been given by the product team or the product marketing team. Then I simply rather go and present that. And I always learned as we grow, right? The first 15-20 minutes is actually the crucial point. From there, we will be able to understand whether they will be going with the particular product or not. So that 15 to 20 minutes is a very crucial aspect in the beginning, and try to incorporate telling the ways time on time, but try to incorporate the challenges from the customer side, what they are facing, and then start your presentation. And the first 15-20 minutes, because things like most of them doesn't have much time, the buyers are like, both from the buyer's side, because if there is a C-level people involved, for them the first 15 minutes is very crucial. So this is again a very hypothetical way that I have put it across, how we can convince a buyer to buy my product. So the people will buy the product if there is a need or a problem is there. Now, if there is a problem or a need that we are able to solve, and it is very easy for us to sell that particular product, then the high probability that the product will fulfill the need or solve the problem better than the competitors. So there will be always a comparison with competitors. And then, as I mentioned, which when the products stand out, they will always buy the particular product. And the second important aspect, we have to create a belief in the mind of the customer that they should only buy product from us. And that's where the standout matter always comes. As I mentioned in the earlier slides, like the FAB approach, then they have the resources and authority to buy. So if a problem persists, right, there are many cases that we have felt, right, after consistent amount of meetings, towards the end, they may come back that we don't have current budget or current resources. So what we always have to see, like when we do sales, starting from cold calling or when we get an inquiry and go, understand whether they have the sufficient resources and authority to buy that particular product, or else it's actually a waste of time for us and waste of time for them. So I've included certain means for the life cycle selling. When we started our career, like we used to, or the current stage also, we used to make a lot of cold calls, right? So life cycle selling. So there's a elevator pitch, and then at the end of the day, we are confused that, like, okay, whether the buyer is asking me to stop or they will buy something. So these are some of the interesting memes that I've collected from various sites, and then I just put it across. I think we are ending the session. So 3 books that you can read is basically from the psychology of selling side. Is basically, one is from Robert B. In terms of the psychology of person. So this is one of the good books that you can always look into. Then the second book is basically on To Sell is Human, The Surprising Truth About Moving Others. And this is by Daniel H. Fink. And this is also one of the best-selling books. And then another important aspect is like The Spin Selling by Neil Rackman. The spin is the concept of situation, problem, implication, and need payoff. So this is again one of the books that you can always look into as far as the psychology of sales has been considered.